You're stuck in Hawkins where deadly creatures from another dimension are hunting you. A shadowy Mind Flayer controls your every move, and one wrong step could mean the end for you. What would you do? In this video, I'll break down the mistakes made, what you should do, and how to beat the terrifying creatures in Stranger Things Season 2. After the events of Season 1, the town of Hawkins deals with the aftermath of the Demogorgon and the mysterious disappearance of 11. These teens are unknowing of the dangers that live inside Will Byers' head and what might cost the lives of innocent people that live in this town. From the moment Will returned from the Upside Down, something was clearly wrong. He wasn't just experiencing nightmares, he was seeing visions of another world bleeding into his own. But instead of treating this as a serious threat, the people around him brushed it off as PTSD. Even Joyce, who was the first to realize something was wrong, didn't act fast enough. Every episode, we see the signs. Will freezes up, trapped in terrifying visions of the Upside Down, but no one thinks to isolate him or figure out what's really happening. By the time they realize he's being used as a spy, it's too late. The Mind Flayer already has taken control, and Will becomes its pawn. They should have immediately isolated Will. This wasn't just some random illness. This was a direct link to an alternate dimension. Ignoring it and treating it like a typical symptom was a grave mistake. Will's connection to the Upside Down should have been the first priority. Keeping him in a secure, controlled environment away from others would have minimized the risk of further exposure. At the same time, Hopper, with his experience dealing with strange phenomena in Hawkins, should have immediately been called in. His knowledge of the town's dark secrets and his understanding of the threat would have been invaluable. Instead of trying to handle the situation in secrecy, he should have been brought into the fold immediately to help contain the threat. He also could have advised on how to safely secure Will and prevent the Mind Flayer from using him as a conduit. If they had recognized the danger earlier and cut off the connection before it grew stronger, they might have stopped the invasion before it even began. Hopper goes deep into the underground tunnels near Hawkins' lab. By this point, he knows there's something strange happening, and it's clear the situation is getting dangerous. But instead of calling for backup or telling anyone about his plan, he chooses to investigate the tunnels on his own. Alone, with no backup, Hopper digs up the entrance and goes down to investigate. What he doesn't know is that he's walking right into the heart of the Upside Down's influence. As he ventures deeper into the dark tunnels, things take a turn for the worse. Hopper starts to feel the effects of the toxic atmosphere and becomes disoriented. Meanwhile, the kids make a similar mistake. When the situation grows more intense and they learn that the demo dogs are still out there, the group decides to take matters into their own hands. The plan? To venture into the Upside Down on their own and trap a demo dog in the junkyard. But there's one huge flaw in their plan. They're all outnumbered. It's as simple as that. What I just said. Outnumbered. First, they underestimated their enemy. They assumed they'd only be dealing with one demo dog, but in reality, these creatures don't hunt alone. They're pack animals. And once the kids engaged one, what did the others do? They quickly closed in and surrounded them from all sides. The craziest part about this situation is, not only are they surprisingly outnumbered, but they showed up ridiculously unprepared. I mean, you're dealing with an extraterrestrial creature, and the only thing you brought was a baseball bat with spikes in it. Come on! Jokes aside, they had no real escape plan. Sure, hiding inside the abandoned bus gave them temporary cover, but what the hell was their long-term plan? The demo dogs could have easily ripped through the weak metal, leaving them trapped with no way out. Without proper backup, their survival was left purely to chance. And finally, their decision to act alone meant they had no way to call for help. If 11 or Hopper had known what was happening, they could have intervened before the situation got out of control. Instead, the kids had to rely on sheer luck. The demo dogs only retreated because the Mind Flayer called them back. If that hadn't happened, they wouldn't have made it out alive. Same thing with Hopper going at it alone. Why in the are people going by themselves, especially when we're dealing with supernatural creatures? What I would have done differently, of course, is assemble a much larger team. I would even throw the Navy SEALs in there. National Guard, everybody coming with me! The lesson here is simple. Splitting up divides your strength and makes everyone more vulnerable. They had to learn this the hard way, but the consequences could have been much worse if they hadn't acted quickly and stuck together. Since Will is still connected to the Upside Down, he experiences a vision of Hopper's dangerous situation. Determined to save him, Joyce, along with Bob and the kids, embark on a mission to locate and rescue Hopper from the treacherous tunnels. Navigating the passages, they encounter the same toxic spores that had previously incapacitated Hopper. Despite the dangers, they press on, driven by the urgency to find their friend. After an intense search, they discover Hopper weakened but alive, ensnared by the very veins that had nearly claimed his life. With combined effort and ingenuity, they free him from the entanglement, ensuring his safety. With Hopper finally rescued from the tunnels, the group knew one thing for sure. The creatures from the Upside Down weren't just appearing randomly, they were spreading. The tunnels beneath Hawkins weren't just a hiding spot for the demo dogs, they were an extension of the Mind Flayer itself. And that meant one thing: the longer those tunnels remained, the worse things would get. But instead of cutting off the threat at the source, they hesitated, and that hesitation nearly cost them everything. At the Hawkins laboratory, Dr. Owens, the lab director, is working with the scientists to try to get ahead of the situation. However, the threat is growing stronger. Owens is genuinely trying to prevent a disaster, but the military and the higher-ups are more concerned with keeping the rift open for their own purposes. They want to continue their experiments, unaware of the true consequences of what they're tampering with. Meanwhile, 11 has continued her search for her mother, but now she's more focused than ever on helping her friends. Her bond with Mike has only deepened, and their shared desire to stop the Mind Flayer pushes them to confront the bigger threat. The team discovers that Will's connection to the Mind Flayer is even more significant than they thought. He becomes the spy for the Mind Flayer, unknowingly sending out signals to its forces. Will begins to experience more intense visions and strange sensations as the creature uses him to understand their world better. Hawkins' lab is falling apart. Alarms blared, lights flickered, and security personnel were being ripped apart one by one. The demo dogs had breached the facility, turning every hallway into a hunting ground. Trapped inside, Hopper, Joyce, Will, Dr. Owens, and Bob had to form a plan to escape. With no way out, Bob stepped up. He knew the lab's systems and had a plan: restore the power, unlock the doors, and everyone could escape. Just as he reaches the lobby, sprinting for his life with creatures closing in, he's suddenly ambushed. Joyce watches in horror, realizing that there's no way to save him, and they have no choice but to escape as he's devoured. Fortunately, Jonathan arrives just in time, and together they retreat to the buyer's house, desperate to figure out their next move. Damn, they done left your boy Bob stankin'. Everyone knows what I'm finna say. There's no way in hell, after getting chased by a demo dog, you're gonna stand completely still with a smile on your face, looking like a idiot. You know, it's really crazy to me to see how avoidable everything would have been if he had just followed a few simple steps. For instance, back in the lab room when he was turning on the systems and unlocking the doors, he left an entire blick on the table. Instead of taking the main hallway, Bob might have found another way out, perhaps through a vent or a side door where there were fewer demo dogs. I ain't even gonna cap, when he used the sprinkler system as a distraction, that was the smartest thing Bob did. And he probably saved everyone else by just using that one tactic. Bob could have also used the walkie-talkies to create a sound diversion. Bob had access to walkie-talkies. If he had placed one in another part of the building with the volume turned up, he could have tricked the demo dogs into running toward the noise instead of chasing him. He could have took this a step further by luring the demo dogs into a trap. Instead of running straight for the exit, Bob could have led the demo dogs into an enclosed room, locking them inside using the walkie-talkies. Given the fact that he's a tech-savvy guy, he might have rigged the room's power supply to electrocute them or set off an explosion. When the broomstick fell and made noise, Bob had a split second to react before the demo dog zeroed in on his location. Instead of freezing in fear, he could have immediately grabbed the broomstick and turned it into a makeshift weapon. All of this would have simply saved his life, but since he didn't have any plot armor, he had to die in the most stupidest way possible. 11 stands at the edge of the massive pulsating rift in Hawkins' lab. With blood trickling down her nose and sheer determination in her eyes, she channels every ounce of her power. Hopper watches anxiously as the Mind Flayer approaches the gate. A moment later, in the tunnels beneath Hawkins, Steve, Dustin, Lucas, Max, and others brace themselves as the demo dogs close in. But just when it looked like it was all over for Dustin and Steve, the demo dogs run past them mysteriously. Back at the lab, 11 gives everything everything she has, her scream rising over the chaos. With one final burst of power, she forces it shut, sealing the upside down. With the Mind Flayer defeated, the demo dog's bodies start to fall down, leaving the town of Hawkins safe for now. How exactly would you defeat the Mind Flayer? Are you just gonna pack all your shit and leave? Or are you more of a heroic type to sit down and develop a plan to save the town? Let me know all your strategies in the comments below, and I'll see you in the next film.